Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Altcoin Analysis, the show where I take a shit on your shitcoins. So we're looking at Cardano today, one of the more interesting blockchain projects of our time, or possibly not as interesting, depending on your perspective. But I wanted to give it a fair go and really give an unbiased analysis on my thoughts on Cardano, what I actually feel, if it has the proper fundamentals or if it has the proper pumpamentals, depending on your perspective. So yeah, we're gonna look at this. They don't really have a title for their blockchain, so I just titled it Formal Verification 2 Electric Boogaloo. So let's get into it. So first, the history of Cardano. This one's pretty simple. They had their ICO in January 2017, led by what was the entity that owns Cardano? It's IOHK, Input Output Hong Kong. And the CEO, Charles Hoskinson. Obviously, there was a huge meme with Charles Hoskinson a while back where he said, where he basically was just completely just having an ego trip on Twitter, which is great. So go and try and find that one if you can. But they had an ICO in January of 2017. They raised $62 million, which even for the time, I mean, remember, we're talking January 2017. This isn't the height of ICO mania. That would happen a year later, but certainly it was I would say there was quite a lot of hype at the time, and having a project raise 62 million at that point in time was really, really huge. I mean, you can imagine it was a hell of a lot of money that they raised, and they managed to put it together. So 62 million for Cardano. They released, ever since they had their mainnet, and the way that their mainnet works is they release the tokens, but they're doing the release in parts. So there's 5 different eras or epochs or releases, which are going to come out slowly over time. The first one is called, I think the first one was called Byron. That was basically the first mainnet. And since Byron, they've released a dataless wallet, which is this really nice wallet. Unfortunately, when it comes to crypto, most of the wallets are really just Bitcoin wallets, copy and pasted. The dataless wallet is actually an original wallet built from the ground up, which is awesome to see. Always good to see whenever wallets are not seen as an afterthought and actually something that is one of the ways that people interact with blockchains, one of the only ways that people engage directly with these things. So really relevant. They've also released their Ouroboros proof of stake mechanism, which I will talk a little bit more about later. And their second release was just called Shelly, which is going to be more focused on actually decentralizing the Cardano holders, the Cardano pools, the nodes, is scheduled for the end of the year. So that is just a quick history. Here's a price chart of Cardano. Probably the saddest price chart I have ever seen. Probably the saddest one we have seen on this show so far. It's, again, Bitcoin pair in orange, USD in the green. It's not faring very well at all, ladies and gentlemen. It's just completely sad. There's nothing really to say about this, and I know there's some Twitter traders. If you happen to go on Twitter a lot, you probably do if you're following this channel, but there's some Twitter traders who are absolute bag holders of this thing, and it's really, really sad every time they bring this up because it's always dumping. Seems like this thing is perma-dumping, and unfortunately, even though we've had all of this perma-dumping, and it looks like this thing is headed towards zero, the current market cap is somewhere around $1.3 billion. So it's really an insane valuation, especially for how much this thing has been falling. So this is just really, really sad. Now, if you're a believer of alt season, if you're a believer in the project, hey, this is great for you. Maybe you do want to buy in at a $1.3 billion valuation. Maybe that feels fair to you. Maybe that feels like a good deal. To me, remains to be seen. So what are the features of Cardano? What are the special things about it? What's the special sauce? So they have formally verified smart contracts. Tezos is the only other platform that I know of that has formally verified smart contracts. However, the difference here is Tezos already has formally verified smart contracts. The formal verification here, the smart contract platform for Cardano, is as of yet not built. So they have it as part of their roadmap. They want to do it after this Shelly release, which is going to happen at the end of the year, hopefully. But they so far do not have smart contracts as a feature. You cannot build yet, even though there is a testnet for it. You can't really make something directly on the Cardano blockchain. They just don't have that platform yet. So they have it planned. So let's just say they have it planned. So interesting little feature there if they can release it. If they can, again, I'm a huge personally, I'm a huge fan of formal verification methods. So good on them. It's built in Haskell. So Haskell is a typed programming language, which is very, very formalized, which means it resolves mathematically, which is generally very good for you if you're a developer, but because it allows you to have a certain level of security and confidence in the system, much like with formal verification for smart contracts. If you have a typed programming language, this is basically called functional programming. If you have a functional programming language like Haskell and you build something on top of Haskell, you can be relatively sure or damn sure that this thing is going to work, because it uses mathematical primitives to resolve all of the computational work, rather than just abstract computer language, which can get a little bit messy and sometimes you can have glitches. That does not happen in a language like Haskell. So it also has a UTXO model. So UTXO model, if you don't know what that is, this is like Bitcoin. And UTXOs are different from accounting systems. So an accounting system is something like your bank account or Ethereum. Ethereum uses an accounting system. And they have a third, or I think this is the fourth release, called Basho, which is coming who the hell knows when. But when Basho comes out, you will also have the ability to have an accounting based system. But until then, we have a UTXO model, very similar to Bitcoin. You spend an unspent transaction output, and then if you have $10 in your wallet, you want to send $2, what you do is you make two transactions, one to send the $2 and one to send $8 back to yourself. So you get that $8 in a UTXO, which is called the unspent transaction. So that's the way it works. UTXO basically makes it a lot faster, which is awesome. So Cardano, very fast. Much like, or at least very efficient. So it has proof of stake with randomized election. So proof of stake, the way that works generally is you have a lot of people staking their coins on nodes, staking their coins, and that gives them a percentage chance to win the election lottery. If they win the election lottery, they get to decide what the next block will be. If they get to decide what the next block will be, then they get to give themselves a Coinbase reward. So Cardano using proof of stake. The interesting thing here is that they use what's called Ouroboros, which is their own homebrew, essentially, method of randomizing and figuring out who will actually be the next block producer. So there is no proof of work here involved, which means it's very efficient, firstly. And secondly, the problem with proof of stake usually is that it's very difficult to figure out, or very easy sometimes to do an attack and figure out who is going to be the next block producer and manipulate that. So the way that Cardano works is it's randomized. I wouldn't say true randomness, because true randomness doesn't really exist in the universe, but it's very, very close to it. And so it's going to be very increasingly difficult for someone to actually try and attack this thing, because the methods of randomization are indeed so powerful and so strong. So that's great. And then they also have infinitely scalable TPS with sidechains. Again, this is another feature that is not yet built into Cardano, but this is something that they do have planned as part of the roadmap. Again, sidechains, if you don't know what a sidechain is, it's basically just a direct copy of the main chain that hooks into the main chain. But having a sidechain lets you scale linearly. So let's say the Cardano blockchain can only have a TPS of 100. Well, you can make a second one with a sidechain. Now you have a TPS of 200, and you just have one other computer allowing you to do that TPS of 200. So infinitely scalable TPS with that. But again, I put it here as a feature, but it's not built yet. So some of the positives of Cardano: they have an extremely strong academic team. I watched the video that explained Ouroboros, and it was like an hour long, and it was really, really boring. So that's how I know that they have a really strong team. But seriously, no, they do have a strong team. This is probably the strongest academic team when it comes to blockchain. There's very few teams. There's a lot of teams from universities, but very few who are approaching blockchain as methodically as these guys are, which is very, very interesting to see. So there is definitely something unique about it in that perspective. They have peer-reviewed functionality. So what that means is, and it's built from scratch, so they go from the ground up. Everything is built from the ground up. The consensus mechanism, how the sortition is decided, the randomness, everything is built from the ground up, which is great. There's nothing copied from Bitcoin. It is completely brand new code, and it's all peer-reviewed, which means it's generally, when you have something peer-reviewed, it means you are making a paper about it, and a formal paper, and you are having people around the world look at this peer review it. to verify whether this thing is actually going to work or not. So this is peer reviewed, which means you have some very, very smart and intelligent individuals looking at each and every single piece of this to make sure that it is actually going to function first as it is defined, and secondly as the best way that it can do so, which is great. And then another positive of it is it promises to be more decentralized than incumbent blockchains. So this is coming out with their Shelley release, what they want to do. So their argument is that if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, there's generally almost this centralization aspect of all of the nodes and the pools getting together. So where most of the mining power and most of the tokens are held by a top 10 different entities, which is very, very small, compared to having entities all over the world and having it be a lot more decentralized. So one of the positives here is that Cardano aims to be a lot more decentralized. Again, this is another promise that they're doing. So this isn't something that we can verify to be sure. So take from that what you will. Your mileage may vary. And the final positive is this is an infrastructure project, so you're going to be able to, obviously this is an Ethereum competitor, you're going to be able to run smart contracts on this thing, you're going to be able to code as you will. This is going to be a permissionless ledger, so anyone can build on this thing. You don't need to ask for anyone's advice or anyone's permission to actually work and build on this thing. So that's great. Now on to the negatives. Most of Cardano's advantages, as you can probably tell from listening so far, they are really just promises rather than anything that you can see as tangible. Everything really that they're talking about, whether it's their smart contract platform or the decentralization plans or the side chains or all of these things, they're all just plans. They're all just on the roadmap. And so a lot of people will look at Cardano and they will tell you, oh, Cardano is great because X, Y, and Z. But all of those things remain to be seen whether they can actually do X, Y, and Z. So far, it's really just a pretty website. And, I mean, we've seen plenty of those. So I wouldn't call Cardano a scam, but certainly they need to deliver. And I would definitely look at this as a negative because they have a lot of promises. They don't have a lot of results. Another negative, super high market cap. This thing is 1.3 billion. I mentioned this earlier. 1.3 billion after falling 99% in the Bitcoin pair, or 90% in the Bitcoin pair. And it's just such an insanely high valuation. I believe it's ranked number 10 or 11 on CMC. So again, if you're going to buy this thing, you're looking for that moonshot. How many more places on CMC are you honestly expecting Cardano to get? Even if it gets to somewhere like the top 3, what is that actually going to net you as an investor? Maybe that'll give you like a 5x or something at most. So are you really going to be looking to invest in Cardano to get a 5x? I mean, again, it has a spot as number 10, number 11 on CMC. It has so much room to fall, not much room to go up. And if it does go up, it's really facing such a hard battle with all of the other incumbents. Another negative, there's lots of competition. Again, when we're talking about Ethereum killers, there's so many of them. There's just probably over 10 or 20 of them. We're looking at WanChain, Ion, Zilliqa, Icon. I mean, I can name so many of them. And credits. I mean, it's just so many of them. Thunder, right? And it's just a lot of competition that these guys are going to have to fit. Tezos, EOS, right? Like I could just keep naming these. But there's so much competition for them that it's really, really hard for you to make a bet on an infrastructure project and say, oh yes, Cardano specifically is going to succeed because of X, Y, and Z. Now you can maybe point to the promises that they're going to deliver, but again, those are just promises. So you're investing in a lot of hot air currently. Another negative is there's a huge negative community perception amongst traders and holders. People who are into Cardano, they love Cardano, they hate the price action. Traders hate the price action from a bullish perspective because all it does is dump. I know this from Twitter particularly. Again, you're listening to this video, you probably follow me on Twitter, you're probably on Twitter prolifically. You know that the community perception around Cardano is super negative. And so that makes it very hard for you to actually buy because, again, so much of crypto is based on hype and speculation and emotions and feelings. And so if you don't take those into account, how are you possibly going to profit? And so negative community perception, which is a huge negative for them. And then finally, they're slow to deliver. What they have delivered so far is great. Their wallet is awesome. Their proof of stake mechanism is incredible. I think it's world class. However, it's taken a long time. It's been nearly 2 years now, I think a little bit over 2 years now, and we really haven't had too much of an update. This to me seems more like a project where you probably want to wait for something like that Shelly release, which is that 2020 end of the year release, where they're going to actually come out with a lot of those updates that they have been promising, and where you will actually be able to evaluate this thing and judge, oh, is this thing actually going to get some kind of market adoption? Are they actually delivering? And if not, then you just save yourself a hell of a headache. So my verdict is generally neutral on this / small buy. So positives, I'm a huge fan of strongly typed languages. Haskell, obviously one of the strongest typed languages. Formal verification is awesome. Though there's a lot of competition, Cardano sets itself apart. Again, not many blockchains are doing formal verification or doing these kind of imperative functions, which is great to see. So there is a certain level of uniqueness in terms of its offering. Third benefit is that the platform is secure enough that corporations and developers may actually choose to use Cardano over other platforms, because if you're looking for security, if you're doing a $10 million contract, you have Ethereum as an option, sure, that's your go-to, but maybe you want a little bit more security. Maybe you want something that's formally verified. Well, then you're looking at Tezos and you're looking at Cardano. Tezos right now, you can create a formally verified smart contract. You can't on Cardano until they release their smart contract platform, but once they do, it's obviously going to be one of the only options. And then on the negative side, again, the high market cap makes it an extremely slow gainer. I'm generally not bullish on anything that's in the top 20, because we're always looking for those moonshots. We're looking for those 10x's. Very difficult to say that Cardano is going to do anything near that 10x, barring some kind of insane crypto bull run. And if the crypto bull run happens, well, pretty much every alt is going to 10x. And then finally, the rigor of development means updates will take a long time. And so it's good on one side, because you know whatever updates do come out are going to be very relevant and very useful and productive and valuable to the community. However, it does mean that it's going to take a long time. There's going to be other competitors like Ethereum who release maybe not the perfect solution, maybe not the ideal solution, but they release their solution and it works 90% of the time. And maybe that, combined with their time lead, is going to be enough to actually defeat Cardano, who, even though is more correct, let's say, is perhaps simply too late, possibly in the future. So that was a quick little review on Cardano. Again, generally neutral on it. I think my advice to most people will probably be to wait until we see the Shelly release. Wait to see what Shelly actually brings to Cardano, if Cardano is actually going to get a lot of this functionality. What is the smart contract platform development looking like? What is the timeline for that? What is the roadmap for that? And then making a decision off of that and reevaluating. So yeah, it was certainly interesting. I was a lot more bearish on Cardano coming into this video, but after actually looking at all of the information and the videos and all of that, it's promising. I will say it's promising. And so something to keep your eye on, for sure. So yeah, if you like this video, please leave a like, leave a comment below. I've been doing a lot more of these altcoin analysis videos, so I'm really interested in the feedback. Let me know if you guys like these things. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if I missed anything. And yeah, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and I will see you guys next time.